What if your hardest moments of your life weren't holding you back, but calling you forward? In this episode, I'm joined by Jay to explore the hero's journey, finding purpose through pain, and why embracing life's challenges can lead to a profound, deeper connection and a more authentic way of living. Welcome to You Matter, I Matter, a transformational podcast about reconnecting with what truly matters. I'm your host, James, and each week is an opportunity to explore a little bit deeper who you really are. With amazing guests, we explore topics such as purpose, connection, commitment, and what it really means to live more consciously. If you've been feeling disconnected from yourself, from others, or from life, you're in the right place. Join us on You Matter, I Matter. Now, let's begin. We've all got our own hero's journey to take. Good afternoon, Jay. Can you explain more about that statement?
Yeah. So we've all got our hero's journey to take. So the hero's journey was a concept developed by Campbell. And for me, what the hero's journey speaks about is taking these things in life that happen to us. So it could be grief, it could be a divorce, it could be a job loss, it could be these really difficult things that happen to us in life. And we see them as a call to action. So that's how Joseph Campbell said it. Everyone's hero's journey starts with a call to action from the outside world. Something calls us to meet a deeper part of ourselves. And if we answer that call and go towards the pain of the thing that happened. So for me in my journey, my body, I've had Crohn's disease since I was 3. My body's on multiple occasions in my life called me in to sit with the darkness, to sit with myself, to sit with troubling emotions and frustrations and difficult things. I think about my dad's death when I was 18. My brother died 2 years ago from suicide. There's been so many different things in my life when I look back that have been a call to action, a call for me to sit with myself. And how Joseph Campbell describes the hero's journey is we have that call to action, that thing that calls us into a deeper part of ourselves. We cross a threshold and we go in to the abyss. We voluntarily go into the abyss of our own soul, our own being, the parts of us that we could have just pushed away, ignored. And on that journey, the hero's journey, we meet a deeper part of ourselves. And if we go on that process with sincerity, with authenticity, with a real surrender to the abyss, then a transformation happens. It's almost like an alchemical transformation happens, but it requires us answering the call and surrendering to the abyss. But once that transformation happens, we can come back. We almost do the return journey. So the hero's journey is a circle in many ways where we answer the call, cross the threshold, go to the depths, learn what we need to learn, and then come back to the above ground from the abyss. And we come back changed, and we come back with the elixir, with the healing elixir that we can then share with others, because we've met a part of ourselves that we can then, not necessarily by telling people what we've been through, but just we feel different. The energy we exude is different. And when I say everyone's got their own hero's journey to take, I think in life, we've got multiple hero's journeys to take, because life is always giving us these calls to action. Some might be deeper experiences than others. My brother's suicide was the deepest one I've ever experienced in my life. But I think life for me has become easier in the last few years when I've begun to see life in this way. That I might be above ground for a while, doing my thing, but at some point life will call me back under. There'll be something for me to learn, and I'll return again changed. And the more I can surrender to that process, the more I can be a better human that walks the planet, like just meet people with more authenticity, more of who I am, because I've been to the abyss and I've met myself. And I think we've all got those journeys to take. Mine's my journey with my illness, with my dad, with my brother, but I bet I'm not going to put you on the spot, James, but I bet you can think of multiple things in your life that have happened. And I bet the people listening to this can think of multiple things that have happened in their life that was so tough at the time when it happened. But once we sat with it, once we learned from it, once we surrendered to the God, the floor has been taken from underneath me, but I've still been able to stand. I've still found ground to stand on. Yeah, we come back changed and we come back transformed.
There's two things that come to mind, and I fully relate. First thing is, for me, my biggest call to action or my biggest hero's journey thing was through a breakup. And that was about 10 years ago, which really got me on the path of personal and spiritual development to the level I am now. And it was more after that, making a commitment to myself to never be at that place again. And the other thing is, I reckon we go through the hero's journey every day.
Potentially.
Because I was thinking, so part of my book, I do a recording, and from the recording goes into my book. And I had this realization that how many times do we have ideas, but we don't action them because because quite often, myself included, doubt ourselves, or we have fear, or we don't feel worthy, and so we stop. Perhaps the universe is saying, the hero's journey is saying to us, here's the thing that you've got, the idea, here's the call to action, go and action it. But because this realization, how many times have I launched one podcast, I've had another idea, another podcast before, never launched that. I had an idea of countless other things. I've been putting off my new meditation platform so many times. I feel like almost all these are like little hero's journeys.
Yeah, I hear that. And it's almost, potentially cycles within cycles in the bigger cycles. And I think on your point around the ideas, I think that does come back to that daily practice, your daily practices. And actually, if you have an idea, it is almost then, okay, this is the idea. I know it will. And I always think with an idea or something you want to take action on in the world, it's where is this coming from? A book that I've been studying for the past year or so, the Bhagavad Gita, talks about taking action without having the fruits of the action. Just take the action because it's aligned with a higher purpose. It's not from ego, it's from a higher purpose. And I think with these ideas, whether it's a podcast or whether it's this idea or that idea, it's actually, can I sit with that? And can I then go into voluntarily again in my daily practice, go into the abyss, go into the void, the darkness inside me. By darkness, I just mean unseen. I don't mean good or bad. I just mean unseen. And actually see what has that got to say about where is this action and this idea coming from? What place in me? Is it coming from a desire to prove, a desire to be seen? Or is it coming from actually this podcast I want to create? I want to talk to these people. And I know if people hear the thoughts and the ideas of these people, then it will expand their consciousness and the world will be a better place. It's a higher calling. The idea is grounded in a higher calling. And sometimes to find that grounding for the ideas, we do need to go to deeper places within us. We do need to dig deep within our souls and metaphorically in the soil within us and plant these seeds from a deeper place within us. Because again, and this is just my perspective, the deeper that is planted within us, the more stable the foundations are, the more it's got roots and the more that idea can then take shape.
Yeah. Who's the mythologically in the myth where a god, was it Hercules or somebody, had to go and do multiple tasks to get on his hero's journey? So I'm going to take a step back with what I said, and maybe the hero's journey you said a higher calling, but within that hero's journey, there are multiple steps, multiple things, like what we do with regards to our purpose, what we do with regards to finding our partner, or finding that sense of being able to step into loneliness, be able to step into discomfort. And they're all smaller steps of a bigger calling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, the cycles within the cycles. I think that is so true. And like you say, I think a big thing is you mentioned your breakup and stepping into that loneliness, stepping into that part of yourself, and then alchemizing that loneliness. How can you be alone? How can you be a divine being, always connected? And yet, alchemizing these things, these parts of ourselves that the call to action is bringing up.
It's you obviously, you're big on to helping men with their purpose of stepping into their true calling. And so I suppose as the idea was purpose. Purpose, it's a loaded question. What is purpose? But for me, it's something where we are able to truly step into ourselves, our own inner authority, to really find our sovereignty and to be guided by our heart, which then leads to the whole idea of the hero's journey.
Yeah, and I think purpose, I think it's essential purposes. And I think for many especially, and this is my experience, for many especially without purpose, I think that energy, that life force, that libido energy in men, without purpose, it can get turned inwards, it can get subverted, it can be turned into the inner critic, self-attack, substance abuse, it can turn into all of these different things. And I think purpose is having that thing, as I said at earlier, the Gita talks about action. And I think it's having that thing that it's like, this is what I'm here to do. My life experiences in this lifetime, maybe others, but certainly in this lifetime, my life experiences have given me this opportunity to make this difference on the earth, and to fall into that might mean a man has to go through addiction. It might mean a man has to go through these terrible experiences, but that's the alchemy. And I think part of the finding purpose is the old saying goes, isn't it? Turn your pain into your purpose. And I think a man that can sit with his pain, sit with his loneliness, his grief, his sadness that he wasn't seen by his father, or whatever it may be, that is the thing that has that hold on him that he hasn't fully felt. I think it's to feel that, and that's the alchemy, to feel that sadness, the grief, or whatever it might be, and to alchemize that into purpose. And I think that's the step when we're talking about purpose that I think a lot of us miss. That we think, I've just got to find my purpose. My purpose is out there. My purpose is out there, and I'm going to find the thing. But actually, the purpose is in here. What things have you been through in your life? What trials, what tribulations, what depths have you met in your life? And how can you be with them and alchemize them and turn that pain into your purpose? So your purpose isn't something out there. It's something in here, in your heart, in your soul, in your being. And I think a lot of talk about purpose, now I'm reflecting on it, that you brought the question up, it does feel like it's something to find out there. I'm going to find my purpose out there. But the seed, again, has to be planted in here. The fruits of it and the application of it might happen out here. But the roots of it will begin internally in your inner world.
Before I go into your story, which we'll do in a minute, I almost feel sometimes purpose has become, I almost feel like a buzzword, which I almost feel kind of taints what we think purpose is. And what I mean by that is that everybody says, go and find your purpose. But really, our purpose is to explore who we are, to step a little bit deeper into what kind of experiences, as you said, to deal with discomfort, to deal with grief, to feel into. And I almost feel sometimes we're a bit impatient, because I think purpose is almost a life journey. And my own journey has been, I've evolved that many times. I've gone through several different businesses, and it's more, we think we have one purpose, and I think we do, because there's a bigger purpose, but I feel like there's multiple multiple sections to our purpose, and that almost feels like like a little small steps to what we're truly there to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, again, here's the cycles within the cycles, purposes within purposes. I think we might look back on our life when we're 80, 90, 100 years old, if we're lucky enough to reach those ages. And we might say, actually, this has been the arc of my life has been this. And I can see the unifying force or the unifying element that brings everything together. I've always tried to do this. But yeah, there's multiple expressions of that. It might have been a business. It might have been a course you took at university. It might have been a retreat you went on, or these different things are different expressions of, the soul's desire to incarnate things in this physical reality, to bring things forth from. I think the more I spend in this, I guess, this space of inner work, the more I'm seeing is, if you think about anything in the physical world, like my phone, this water bottle, it started in someone's mind. It was in the inner world, like where so much of this stuff happens. And I think that's, for me, where purpose is not found. It's almost remembered. It's remembered inside. It's remembered in our inner world by sitting with ourselves, by alchemizing these emotions, these tricky, darker, sticky parts of ourselves that we would rather push away and not meet. So yeah, absolutely. I think it has become a bit of a buzzword that just find your purpose and all your problems will be solved. I think in a strange way, I think there is some truth in that statement, find your purpose and all your problems will be solved, because then you're waking up every day, you're clear, you know what you're doing, you know what you're on this earth to do. But I think you mentioned patience. I think there is an element of patience too, because it's something, I think purpose is something that matures over time. I think if you're lucky, you find your purpose, in teens, in your early 20s. But you also see that with, say, sports people, with footballers who obviously find their purpose at a very young age, and then by their mid-30s to late 30s, 40s, they retire, and then it's, now what's my purpose? I think you are right. That patience element is something it's not something to rush, but it's something to take day by day and allow it to mature over time. And as I say, when you look back on your life, I'm sure you'll see actually there has been this thing that's driven me. When I was in it, I wasn't quite sure what it was, but now I can see it.
Yeah. Let's go into your story. What got you to where you are today?
A big question. Yeah, many things. I think first and foremost, I think my body has been such a pivotal part of my journey. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 3. I had surgery when I was younger, when I was 3, and then another surgery at 18, and then surgery for an ileostomy stone bag, which I have to this day, which was 2010, it's got 16 years ago. So yeah, my body and my relationship with my body has shaped my life massively. And with my body, I include my emotions. I won't go into all the details, but when I was 3, some heavy things happened to me, with a drowning incident, with some physical abuse, with my grandma passing and my Crohn's disease diagnosis. Yeah, a lot of things happened when I was 3, and I've done a lot of work through therapy, through coaching, through plant medicine, through different modalities to, just really understand who I am. I think I grew up with a lot of just emotion in me that, in my view, I can only speak from my view in terms of Crohn's disease, manifested as a physical illness. And I feel like it was emotion that was trapped in my body, like fear and different things trapped in my body, and helplessness and powerlessness manifested as a physical disease in me. So I think my body and the relationship I've been with my body has been huge. And especially over the past 5 years or so, after my ileostomy surgery, I went through 10 years with no symptoms, had the surgery. I moved down to London for 10, 11 years. I went traveling. I was working in the corporate world, and just living life, partying, going out, getting drunk, just living the life of a 20-year-old, of a 20-something. And then, lockdown hit. And again, you mentioned a breakup. I had a breakup around lockdown, and that was really a call to action. A lot of the things where I'd been having fun in my 20s was actually part of me running and escaping bits of myself and numbing and not feeling. And then, I feel like for the past 5-6 years, all I've done is just really feel a lot of emotions, feel a lot of things are suppressed. So as well as having my body and my illness, my dad died when I was 18, as I mentioned, and he, really struggled with alcohol all his life, especially the later part of his life. And then he passed away when I was 18, and I never really dealt with that grief. I didn't know what to do with it. Myself, I'd spent my whole teenage years really ill and in quite a dark place myself, really acute My Crohn's came back quite aggressively when I was a teenager. So yeah, my dad passed away, and then started my inner work, my healing journey around lockdown, and did a lot of work between, I'd say, 2020 and 2024. And yeah, I'd really met parts of myself. I remember making it was June 2020, it was lockdown. I'd gone through this breakup and I'd been really needy. The woman, she'd broken up with me, and I kept messaging her, kept trying to, and kept bothering her basically, kept trying to rekindle the relationship. And she kept saying no. And part of me just couldn't accept that the relationship was over. And then I think she sent me a message and I just felt so pathetic. I just felt like, God, how low can I get? And I just made it. And I had this feeling then that if I don't figure out my life and the patterns I keep falling into in relationships, I think that relationship, when it ended, was the third relationship where a similar pattern had happened, where the relationship had started beautifully, chemistry, love, happy days. And then slowly I just withdrawn part of my being from the relationship. I just numbed, I just avoided, I wasn't in touch with my emotions. And basically the life got sucked out of the relationship. And I just saw that pattern happening. And then I was trying to get this girl back. And I was like, if I don't figure out what is going on with me, I'm gonna get into the relationship, I'm gonna have a family, and then I'm gonna kill myself when I'm 50. It felt that I need to figure this out. I didn't feel necessarily suicidal in that moment, but I just really felt like if I keep going around this cycle and keep adding more responsibility in my life, getting promotions, getting more responsibility at work, maybe having a family, there's going to be nowhere for this pressure to go. And I almost foresaw my life at 50, just feeling hopeless, feeling like I didn't know myself. So I just made a vow in June 2020, I remember it. And I was like, I'm going to figure out. And I just went upstairs and I started just journaling every single fucked up, dark thought, just every thought I'd had that I'd pushed away. And there was some absolutely horrendous shit in there that I won't go into detail, but it was just stuff I'd been pretending I wasn't. All these resentments, all this hatred, all this bitterness, all this stuff. And it came out whew. And I feel like the last 5-6 years have been me sitting with that through therapy, through coaching, many kind of real retreats, embodied retreats that really get you in your body, plant medicine, as I mentioned. And so, yeah, I feel like I committed to figuring myself out. And then quit my job in May 2023, felt like the corporate world wasn't for me anymore. Found a Jungian life coaching certification, and I took that for 12 months. Qualified as a life coach in early 2024. Started my business, was coaching men, doing purposeful work, what felt meaningful to me. And then in September 24, my brother passed away by suicide, and I found him. And everything, it was almost like everything I thought I knew, everything I thought I'd figured out about myself, it felt like it was all just nonsense. I felt like I just didn't know. I was coaching men and I just was like, who am I to coach men? Seeing my brother over the past maybe 18 months of his life just get lower and lower, and I wasn't able to help him. I wasn't able to reach him. I wasn't able to change the outcome of his life. And I spent 10 months after the admin of death and arranging his cremation and doing these kind of things. He died in the September, and from the November until the August, I think one thing I knew when he died was there's no way around this grief. I'd done enough work to know that there's no way around this grief. Like, I can't put it off. I knew with my dad, my dad died when I was 18, and I didn't grieve him until I was about 32, and it just hung heavy on me. And I just knew I had to go towards this grief, and I didn't know how. And then I remember journaling in the November, 2 months after Kieran had died, and being like, God, I'm not even feeling this. I know what's happened, but I'm not even feeling this. And I said, all right, for the next 3 months, I'm just going to let myself fall. I'm just going to let myself completely fall into this. He was my older brother. He was 2 years older than me. My first best friend. We grew up building forts and riding bikes and playing hide and seek. He was such an integral part of the fabric of who I am as a person. even if in our later lives we drifted apart, but until the age of 14, 15, we were like this. We were just inseparable. And I just didn't know how to feel it. So I just made this commitment when I was journeying. I'm just going to for the next 3 months, nothing else matters. I'm just going to let myself fall into this grief. And so that's what I did. And almost within, I'd say a week, my body just started falling apart. My body started falling apart. I started getting ill. I could barely talk to anyone. I just was just, yeah. And then it didn't last 3 months. It lasted about 10 months where just everything fell apart. My life fell apart. My health fell apart. I went to A&E. I was called ambulances. I could barely get out of bed. My finances, I had no money. I had nothing. And money is very interesting, but I knew I knew there was a depth I wasn't feeling. I think one of my mentors, he hosts assisted therapy retreats, and I knew I had to go to that. But I also knew that I needed support for integration before and afterwards. And so I was talking to him about this, and he was holding me and talking to me and supporting me through the process. And I went to him telling him I'm not feeling this, and he suggested this is the deepest work he's done. And so I asked him about it, and he actually put me in touch with his mentor, and I had a conversation with him. Something didn't feel aligned. And then I ended up working with my mentor, who I won't mention his name, but I didn't have the money for it. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about how I found the money for it, James, because it was quite wild. So my brother's cremation, I'd arranged this with the funeral director, with my mum and my sister. And I was the point of contact. And the day before the funeral, I get a phone call, and it's the funeral director. And he said, the coffin that we'd chosen, that my mum had chosen for Kieran to be cremated in, he said it's too big for the crematorium. So what he said would happen is the service would happen like normal, and Kieran's body would then be taken to another crematorium 50 miles away, and he'd be cremated there. And I was like, that's not happening. My brother is not being cremated with none of us there. So call me back with a better solution. And so he called me back and was like, okay, we can change the coffin. It won't be the one you selected, but we can change the coffin. I said, great, we'll do that. Kieran will be cremated. He'll have the send-off that he deserves. We get to the cremation and crematorium on the day. Beautiful service. My sister reads some words. I read a poem. Yeah, just exactly how you'd want it to go. And then we're at the wake at a pub about 5 minutes away. And the funeral director comes up to me and he says, Kieran's not been cremated. The second coffin that we put him in was too big for the crematorium. So he's not being cremated, but we're going to take him to another crematorium and we're going to cremate him. And this part in me, but that I'm getting more and more access to, was like, I hear you. That's not happening. What's going to happen is you're going to find a crematorium that's local, that Kieran's coffin can fit in. We're going to stay here and enjoy the wake, me and my family. And you're going to arrange that to happen this evening. And I don't know how you're going to arrange it, but that's what's going to happen. And so that's what happened, is they arranged another cremation just with family there. It ended up being a really beautiful moment in the end, actually. It was just family, and Kieran was cremated and given the dignity that he deserved. And then the funeral directors were so apologetic that I think they were terrified we were going to go to the press. I don't know what. We spoke to the celebrant who had run the service. We spoke to her, and she knows many funeral directors. We said, is this normal? Does this ever happen? No one had ever heard of that happen, that twice they'd made this mess up anyway. They refunded the whole cost of the funeral. Everything was refunded to my mom. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for this work I needed to do. And what my mom did was she split that money between me and my sister. And she said, I want you and your sister to have half of this each to help with your mental health and your processes and whatever you need it for. It's yours, it's your money. And it was exactly the amount of money that I needed for the therapy before and after the retreat, and for the retreat. And that retreat, what it gave me and being able to pay for it. Like I said, I had no money and I was able to pay for it. What it did in that retreat, like I met Kieran, I met part of myself. I don't know what happened, but I was put into my body. Like since I was 3, I've never felt safe in my body. I've never felt a home in my body. Those experiences I mentioned, they took me out of my body and into my head. And that's where I believe I'd lived for 30 plus years of my life. That retreat and the safety and the surrender and the experience of Kieran and knowing I needed to find the bottom of something, it really put me into my body, and I felt my body. I felt the pain. I felt the exhaustion. I felt the grief. I felt the part of me that was just terrified that my big brother had killed himself. The actual stark reality of that, what that meant. And at that point in time, my nephew was really struggling. My brother's son, my brother's partner was really struggling. Like there was so much chaos and utter devastation. And the gift of going to that retreat, it helped me just feel it all and find the bottom of my grief. And I'm so grateful for that experience and the way the money came to me, because I think from that point onwards, and that was May 2025, I found the bottom and I've been able to rebuild my life, my strength, my identity, who I am. The question stopped being about why did Kieran do this, and actually what was Kieran giving me? What was Kieran giving me in this decision? What? And it's not to glorify suicide. It's not to be flippant about how devastating his decision has been to my family, to his children. What I know though is my brother has given me a gift that's going to unfold in my life. He enabled me to access parts of myself, and what he did in a way only a big brother can. He made me wake the fuck up. He made me stop pretending, stop overriding my body, stop pushing through, stop ignoring. In the only way, as I say, a big brother can do, he gave me this push to start taking life more seriously, to start taking my needs more seriously, to start taking my body more seriously, my boundaries more seriously, to start, living the life that I know I'm capable of, bringing my fullness to life, to stop being scared of life. It's almost like with Kieran's decision to die, he's given me permission to live, to really embrace life.
That's powerful. That last bit, your brother giving you the permission from death to be alive, that is super powerful. And the one thing I noticed from what you said is one of the key things through the entire thing is the idea of embodiment. And that's it. I feel more, a lot more women are more embodied generally, because they almost, I suppose, society says they can feel their emotions, whereas if men were told to man up and to be strong, don't think about your emotions, the old-fashioned way, shall I say. What do you do on a daily basis to really embody yourself?
You know what? I think it starts with really basic things. And actually, the first thing that came to my mind then was how I think about my body, like how I talk to it, how tender I am with it. And actually, in that psychedelic assisted therapy retreat I went on, this beautiful image came up of my body as my daughter. So I know in life, if I had a daughter, if I had a daughter and she wasn't well, or she needed something, I would do whatever, as her father, I would do whatever I could to give her that. And actually in that retreat, I started to see my body is my daughter. So how I treat my body, how tender I am with my body, it is like how I would treat a daughter. Because I view the body, it can be strong, but it's feminine, it's feels, it's sensation, it's sensuality. And so with my body, it is how I treat it. So yeah, as I say, treating it like my daughter. It's getting regular massages. So yeah, in that past sort of 12, 18 months, that's something I've started to do, get regular massages. I have a couple of nice hot baths a week, even in this weather, a nice hot bath, candles. Really treat my body like it's something, it serves me every day. Stretching it, moving it. It doesn't, I think it doesn't have to be difficult. It really doesn't have to be difficult, but just remembering that I'm not just this, I'm not just a mind. I am a body, and they're not separate. How my body feels when my body's feeling, when I'm in my body, the work I do when I'm on my laptop and I'm creating things or I'm coaching, it feels easier because I haven't got all these thoughts go running around my head, questioning. I'm in my body. So yeah, really simple things, Jane. Massages and spending money on things that feel good for my body. Something I've really been trying to do lately is really look at the type of clothes I'm wearing, natural fibers, things like that, and not trying to boil the ocean, not trying to do everything at once, but just what's one small thing you can implement just to show your body some gratitude, to show your body some love. I love dancing. Sometimes, like, again, if I'm at my laptop and I'm getting a bit stuck in my head, I'm trying to write some copy for a website or whatever it might be, and I'm like, you know what, I'm trying to think my way out of this. I'll just get up and I've got a little space here and I'll just have a little dance for a couple of songs and I'll come back to the work, but it's a completely different space because I'm not coming at it from my mind.
Yeah, I was thinking I might try that. Because I didn't meet you until I messaged you. And obviously we're both at the Soul Revolution and I spent the entire 4 days dancing. I think my body by the end of it hated me.
Yeah.
But I felt so good. And at one point, I was in this drum and bass place next to the speakers, and I was so embodied that the bass just started shaking my body. And it's almost like the music was going through my body. It was such an immense experience. It was absolutely unreal. With regards to grief, because I, for one, I feel like I feel my grief, but probably in not the traditional way. And I'm saying that because as I connect with, I'm quite good at connecting with my body. I almost feel like my body saying, I am feeling my grief, but it's not through what I think. How did you really how did you create an amazing relationship with grief?
Good question. I don't think there's a formula really. I think it's just sitting with it. I think it's just, and I think a lot of especially around my brother, I think a lot of my grief was like anger and resentment. A lot of my grief was around, some of the things that came up after my brother died, his decision to die the way he did. Like I think there was a lot of my grief was anger and bitterness. And then there was also a lot of tenderness as well. It was spending time with that little boy version of myself. And I remember one visualization I had when I was meditating once, and it was, we have the patio in our back garden when we were little, and me and Kira used to play football. And it was thinking of me telling that little boy, me as a little boy, that his brother in the next sort of 20 years or whatever it was, 25 years, he's gonna die. He's gonna choose to end his life. And it was like sitting with how that little boy, there's a little boy inside of me that was like, just couldn't even fathom the brutality of what had happened. And it was like inviting him in, and then in that visualization, what I ended up doing was like hugging them both, hugging me as a little boy and hugging my brother as a little boy, and just being that, feeling their grief, but also being the one that can lead them to a different place. So I think it was just being with the emotions that came up on a day-to-day basis. Like I think part of me is still integrating that 10-month period between November 24 and April 25, because every day was just so different. Every day was just so different. It generally involved me being like, fucking hell, life is so difficult. And it just felt like it was never going to end. Part of me knew the dawn would come. Like, spring always comes, winter never lasts, the spring always comes. And that was almost like a mantra throughout that 10-month period. Dawn will come, the spring will come, but right now it's winter. And it was just meeting every day, meeting what was present without trying to change it. And that included things like my family and my partner at the time. They were like worried about me. They thought I'd given up on life. And part of me had. But also part of me was like, I need to go through this death process. I need to go through a symbolic death. And that's, I think, what happened in those 10 months when I was in that grief. And I truly believe that the deeper, like, grief is a doorway to so many other emotions. to anger, to resentment, to bitterness. But also what I'm finding now is it's a deeper access to joy, to love, to these more sort of higher frequency emotions, to accept, to peace. But it does require, I guess, in some ways, what, and I guess what I'm learning is it requires some sacrifice to sit with the grief, to sit with the way life has turned, and let go of those old versions and the way you would have preferred it to be, and just meet the tenderness of, say, that for me, that little boy, that little 6-year-old in me, whose brother is like my brother when I was 6 was like my hero. Like I say, I can still feel being in those forts we used to build at the back of our back garden, playing football. I can still feel so much of that real, just, I've just got a partner who, I've just got this. I'm so fortunate to have this older brother, and I do everything with him. We had bunk beds. We had all these things that we were just literally like twins, but 2 years apart. But just had to allow myself to feel the sadness of what he would have felt had he lost his brother.
I've got a good relationship with my body, and one thing I've been practicing the last year is asking myself, where do I feel anger, or where do I feel anger in my body? Where do I feel grief in my body? And it changes every time you ask, more than likely, for me. And I even noticed that when you were saying that, I connected to the grief in my body, and I could feel the tear, almost like tearing up. And I was like, this isn't the time and place to feel the grief, but it's that idea that when you create that connection with your body, it's almost like the body will guide you to where you need to go to feel what you need to feel, depending on what's going on. But you've got to be willing to step into that. And it's not, and as we've seen, it's not a pretty picture, feeling these emotions.
No.
And it can be very taxing, it can be very upsetting, it can be time consuming. But when you do, you create a relationship with it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And part of the process I went through last year, so I was in the grief, and part of the resentment I was sitting with was like, some people were just cracking on with life. Kieran had died, and what I'm seeing now is I have no responsibility. My responsibility to myself, basically. I have no dependents. At the time, I had no job. I live at home with my mom. So at that point in time, I could really just give myself to the grief. Whereas if you've got children or a job, a mortgage, all these things, to fall apart is to, in some ways, just destroy your life or be a reckless. So so what I'm describing in terms of my journey, I don't necessarily think it's the right way for everyone, because I couldn't imagine it. I would have mentioned before saying if I had a daughter, I'd do X, Y, and Z. So it's not to say that what I did to just literally die as this symbolic death. Or again, like I said, I'm still integrating that experience. I don't have any definitive sort of description of what it was. But I had almost the luxury to do that. All the work I'd done since 2020, I knew what to do. It was almost like that was the training for 5 years. Then Kieran's death was like, okay, what are you going to do now? How are you going to meet this tragedy? And yeah, it is. It's not to say it's the only way. Because I don't think it is the only way. I think it's a way to just sit with the grief and meet it and let yourself fall apart. But I think there are also more subtle ways to be with grief. I think there are also more like, for my mum, for example, something she does is just paint by numbers. Like she does paint by numbers on her iPad. You know what I mean? And for me, obviously I lost a brother, my older brother, but I cannot imagine what losing a son to suicide must be. And my mum has generally remained strong throughout this whole process and remained upright, whereas I went very much horizontal. But I think her grieving process has been much more subtle. It's much more in different moments. Whereas I think I really just went in one big fell swoop. I think my mum's is more, just different. I think it's just different. Different. And both are valid. Both are welcome.
This is it. You haven't got to feel it all at once. For me, I can allow myself to feel whatever emotion, perhaps for 10, 15 minutes. I might journal. And part of what I'm going to do, so I'm writing a book at the moment. I've got 2 new books lined up. And one of the 2 new books is basically me connecting to my emotion and almost communicating from that emotion what wants to be said. And so it becomes something where I'm creating that relationship with that emotion. So I feel like we see emotions either good or bad kind of things, like sadness, grief, anger, frustration, resentment. Quite often we see as society sees as bad emotions, whereas happiness, joy, excitement, we see as good emotions. But they're almost, I feel like these emotions aren't good or bad. They just are.
And information.
Yeah, they carry this energy. But I feel like this energy has a message for us.
Yeah, I think it is just information. It's information. I always think the work I do is shadow work. And so I work a lot with triggers. Something happens out there. It created this emotional reaction in me, like anger, sadness, grief, whatever it might be. What is it telling me? What's it telling me about a part of myself I've not met? And none of what you're doing, because that is generally the next step I do in shadow work with my clients, is then it's a dialogue. It's integrating the trigger. It's integrating what the triggers, and that usually happens by, some dialogue with the emotion, some sense of being with the emotion, sitting with the emotion, asking questions of the emotion. What are you protecting me from? What do you need? All of these kind of questions to reclaim that penny, because a trigger is just energy we're giving out, and we can reclaim that energy by getting the insight on the trigger and then being with the emotion. Very similar to how you described, James, of being with the emotion, questioning it, understanding it, and then integrating it.
I think I've told you this story before. So at Soul Revolution, there's some girls that I liked, and I knew that I liked them. And that's a good way. That lust is a good conversation to have with lust. But it's this idea that I noticed those guys around, so I was getting a little bit jealous, a little bit resentful. So I went back to my tent, allowed myself to sit in the tent and just ground myself. And then I asked the question, what are you trying to tell me? And what came through was the fact that I just need to love myself. And all that part wanted wasn't necessarily that person. It wanted that person just to get their love. I realized that I can give that to myself. So then I then allow myself to feel that love. And then suddenly my whole persona completely changed. And I was just present. I was just a sense of, this is fucking awesome. So yeah. But it just shows it's not simple. It is simple, but it's more that it's a practice of creating that dialogue with that emotion, but also at the same time, it's just about, I suppose there's a lot of people who find embodiment quite hard because they've been so used to their mind. So it's just like a little practice of shifting from their head into their body gradually. And then the more they do that, the more they'll connect to different sensations.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It is just a practice. And it's something, it's never done. And I think once I've surrendered to that, and I am surrendering to that idea that it's just never done. And it's going to constantly be a practice of me coming back to what is triggering me today? What is this bringing up in me? What is that bringing up in me? And I think the more you do it, the more you become in tune with your emotions. So the less frequently you get triggered because you've already been into that material, that trigger. So I think it is a practice, and I think it's something that you're just constantly bringing it back to you. Just bringing it back to you. Okay, that happened there. What's that showing me about but the reaction was in here. So that the event is neutral. I always think of it like this. I could experience something. Maybe someone cuts me up in traffic. And maybe for me, it's, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And then for Joe Bloggs here, he's like, oh, chill, whatever. Okay. I hope they're safe wherever they're rushing off to. So the event is neutral. It's how it is then filtered through every single lived experience I've ever had in this lifetime, potentially other lifetimes. The same for the other person. So it's like, it's reclaiming the power, just constantly bringing it back to me. Okay, that happened. I interpreted it like this. What's going on? And just again, exactly like you did, change that example from the festival where, those girls and the guys were just there. They're neutral. What's coming up in you was what was coming up in you. And going back to your 10, owning that. And actually, I think if we did that collective, and this is going to be a bit of a wild statement, but I genuinely believe if we could get to a place where more of the world does that, I do think on a collective scale, there'd be less war, less famine, less disaster. Do you know what I mean? Not that we control the weather, but there'll be less carnage in the world because we would all at an individual level take responsibility. We take responsibility. A retreat that I went on, they said this saying, which could be seen as quite a cold statement, especially when you think of all the really traumatic things that can happen to people. But I think there is such an element of truth in it. It's, I am responsible for my lived experience.
Yeah.
So whatever's happening out there, whatever's happened to me, however traumatic it was, for me, ranging from my Crohn's disease to my brother ending his life, however traumatic it is, and it is traumatic, but I am responsible for my lived experience. That's powerful. And there's power in that. Yeah, there's power in taking that responsibility, because then I'm not at the whim to whatever's happening out there, because I can't control what happens out here. What's happening in here.
So it means that we can take responsibility for our loneliness, and to feel our loneliness, so that we start to feel more alive.
It's 9 times out of 10 with my clients, what I see happen. The feeling they're pushing away, and I think that loneliness or the sadness or the grief, the feeling they don't want to feel, when they feel it, they're like, oh my God, that feels so, oh my God, I was using so much energy not feeling it that I was exhausting myself. And now I've felt it, and it is uncomfortable. But that uncomfortability doesn't last forever. Something I'm inviting in. So again, there's an element of responsibility and control, because I'm inviting in this uncomfortable feeling. And then, like you say, the loneliness becomes, oh my God, actually, I feel great. If I got curious about it, given myself what I needed. And now I can go back out and have a great time at the festival.
I don't know about you, but what I find with me is that as soon as I set the intention to feel that emotion, probably within 10, 30 seconds, that energy in that body where it was goes. But you've got to get to a point where you've got to feel it. And I noticed that I might have a little bit of, say, anxiousness. I allow myself to feel that anxiousness. It then might shift to curiosity. And then there's the questions, why is it there? What's it want to say? How can we create a better relationship with it?
Yeah. And I think curious is the right word. I think we're not interrogating the emotions. We're not trying to make them right or wrong. We're just inviting in an element of curiosity. What is this here? I wasn't feeling like this 5 minutes ago. I've come into this environment. Now I'm feeling it. What might this be? What could it be related to? Just curiosity, gentle curiosity. It's not an indictment. It's not, there's no good or bad emotions. They're just information.
Yeah, nice. Just to finish off, can you tell us what you do and how can people get in contact?
Yeah, so I am a Jungian life coach, a depth coach. I work with men. I work with men who have something that so I use the term chronic masculinity, and I've got a chronic illness, Crohn's disease. And when I've witnessed my dad, my brother, a lot of the men's space I've been in, I see this element of what I'm calling chronic masculinity. And it's not a diagnosis. It's not saying masculinity is bad, but it's a version of masculinity that's operating on an old operating system, where there's an old way of being strong, of pushing through, of ignoring the body, ignoring the emotions, comparing yourself to other men, and just generally having this harsh inner critic that's driving so many of the decisions that you make. I call it chronic masculinity. And so I support men who have those challenges, those problems, because at the root of that, we've almost gone full circle, going back to purpose, is there's a thing, or maybe it's a book, maybe it's a business, maybe it's an album. I don't know what it is, but there's something in them that is crying out for transformation, to be born, to be put out into the world. But they're trapped in this old operating system of grinding, of hustling, of pushing, of forcing, and it's not allowing that creation to be born, because it's trying to be forced. Yeah. And so I support men to just firstly get honest with themselves about what the pattern is. Secondly, look at the pattern and how can we change it? And then thirdly, take action towards that goal from a grounded, intentional place. So that's my coaching offer. And I also do some coaching with an organization called Creative Mind, in the States, so I have some of their clients. Yeah, so that's my offer. And so generally work with men, but yeah, a couple of other clients over in the States as well.
Nice. Thank you very much, Jay. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, James. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you for holding this space. Appreciate it.
Hold on. Thank you for listening. If something in today's conversation resonated, take a moment to sit with it. And if you feel called, share this episode with someone who might need it too. You Matter, I Matter is a growing space. And if you'd like to stay connected, you're welcome to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps this work to reach people it's meant for. These conversations matter. You matter, I matter. Until next time, take care of yourself and the relationships in your life.